Frustration is mounting and anger is growing with the liberals and passive politicians. Learn the playbook of those who are trying to destroy our country. From the blue-collar professor, he teaches, he leads, he speaks out for truth and justice. Now, the educator of all things conservative, your host.
The leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98Talk.com.
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement, and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method and to get your free report, go to 29security.com. That's the number 29security.com. 29security.com. Go to 29security.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
All right, folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business, and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
Wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000, my heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
The Internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa. Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started.
Dr. Gavin Mitchell.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of the program. So glad you could join us as we close out the week, where we continue to take the left to school, exposing them for who and what they really are, all while arming the hardworking Americans like you and me with knowledge we need to hold our elected officials accountable. But fear not. Unlike the liberal professors' classrooms, you will find no safe zones here. Why? Because we believe in the First Amendment. I am Gavin Mitchell. Welcome to the Gavin Mitchell Show. And this is a very special edition of the Gavin Mitchell Show because I have brought in my good buddy, Chris Buskirk. He is the publisher for Downstream Politics, a website with some great blogs on there. Very conservative. If you get an opportunity, get out there and read that because that is just solid gold in my opinion. And you can find Chris Buskirk's show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 a.m. Central on conservativeradionetwork.com. You can find him on iTunes and Stitcher as well. Chris, thanks for joining us, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Gavin. Thanks for having me on. But I didn't realize there were going to be no safe spaces. I might have to curl up in a ball a little later and cry myself to sleep.
As so many do these days, it seems, right? Yeah, well, man, I'm excited you're here, and to let the audience know, you're actually out in the Phoenix area, correct?
I sure am, yeah.
Okay, all right, so border patrols and immigration and things like that are very important to the guys over there, just like they are in Texas, but I don't think we're going to brush on that today because as you police the news outlets, there's a lot going on, and one of the things we talked about off the air, Chris, is some of this gun control discussion that's going on. And I don't know if you paid attention to the news early this morning, but we actually had another nut job in Ohio who has killed 7 people and is on the loose. And it brings to the forefront this idea of gun control again. And the left is going to constantly spin it as it's the gun's fault. If these people couldn't get their hands on guns, then this wouldn't happen. But the argument, to me, the common sense argument, to use a phrase they like to use, is that these guns don't go off by themselves, and law-abiding people don't commit acts like this. And so I want to get into this in the first segment with you, just this whole idea of gun control. And the left is at it again. Hillary Clinton has sent her all-knowing daughter, Chelsea, out, and just a brilliant mind this clown is, talking about the opportunity the left has with the absence of Scalia on the court to maybe rush some legislation up to the high court to get what they call a once and for all ruling to make sure this thing is locked up. Now, I know you've done some research on this aspect in and of itself, Chris. Enlighten me. What is she doing? What is going on here?
Yeah, well, not Hillary, but Chelsea was out yesterday, and she's on the campaign trail on her mother's behalf. And she was giving a speech yesterday or not at, but in Maryland, and a good part of the speech was devoted to the subject of gun control. And Chelsea made it very clear what her mother's thinking. I mean, we got to give them some credit here. They don't hide it, right? I mean, there are a lot of people who don't want to see it, but they do not hide it. And when she said her mother is very optimistic that with the passing of Justice Scalia, that in a prospective Hillary Clinton administration, God forbid, they would be able to get what they call a definitive ruling on gun control. And of course, and what they mean by that is that they would be able to get some sweeping gun control legislation through through the Congress, and then eventually, of course, it would be challenged. It would get to a Supreme Court, but it would see a Supreme Court that is 5-4 left liberal instead of evenly divided, and that it would get blessed by the Supreme Court, and would fundamentally change that basic right that we have through the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms.
Right. Now, that plan, that strategy, it counts on a few factors being in place. One, that Congress, both the Senate and the House, continues their MO in refusing to be an opposition party, that they wouldn't stand up to any liberal movement or any liberal legislation that's rolling through to suppress our Second Amendment rights. It hinges on that. The second piece is it hinges on a conservative appointment, which would sway the court from what has been 5-4 for the conservatives to 5-4 for the liberals if there is a liberal appointee. But she's right on a number of issues, Chris, in that the court hasn't been real consistent in their interpretation of the Second Amendment. There hasn't been a thread of logic that flows through all of these rulings. It has been kind of scattergun. And the right has fought for this very prospect for a long time, to get a definitive and final answer on what the Second Amendment truly means and how it applies to us as citizens. Do you agree with that analysis?
I agree with it basically. I will say that there's one part of the strategy that you didn't mention, and that is that when it comes to things like gun control, the left becomes enamored of states' rights, and it's one of the only times you see them. See them liking the idea of states' rights of the 10th Amendment, and so the other part of the strategy is that what they see as being possible, even with a 4-4 court, by the way, is that some of this crazy legislation that the states pass, like you see legislation in California or other states, where the states will severely restrict the individual's rights to own guns, to deal in guns. They'll try and pass outrageous taxes on transaction taxes on the transfer of guns. And what the left is seeing is that they have an opportunity, even now, even before Hillary were to get elected, or any other Democrat for that matter were to get elected. So they see an opportunity with a 4-4 court, is that they could get a positive ruling, let's say in the Ninth Circuit in California, which is probably the most liberal circuit in the country. They could get a ruling in their favor in the Ninth Circuit. It would get appealed to the Supreme Court, and either the Supreme Court would refuse to hear it, which is unlikely. They might take that, which would mean it would stand, or they would take it, and a 4-4 ruling would leave the lower court ruling in place.
Right.
And so that's at a minimum a major tactical victory, but ultimately what they're going for is that long-term strategic victory where they win a definitive 5-4 or 6-3 ruling at the Supreme Court, which basically eviscerates the Second Amendment.
Right. Now, I noticed that Chelsea, as so many do over there on the left, decided to tug on heartstrings and play the emotional card, because as I'm reading through her little speech, she mentions, every day I think about Sandy Hook families whose children didn't come home from school, and I can't even imagine living that horror and tragedy. She's 100% right, and we talked about this last week on the Gavin Mitchell Show, that any sane and rational American is and was heartbroken when they got the news of what happened at Sandy Hook. Nobody promotes anything of the like. But to take that tragedy and politicize it into sweeping legislation that is enacted out of emotion is the wrong play. I have never made a decision in my life that is based off emotion and then a few years later look back and be like, man, that was a really good decision. It's just not a good thing to do.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, and so the reason this came up last week is because the court in which 9 of these families and a surviving member of the teaching staff, they have sued Remington because they were the maker of the Bushmaster assault weapon that was used. And there is legislation that has been passed. It is federal law now saying you can't sue gun makers for nut jobs taking their product and enacting violence. You can't do it. But the court decided that argument was best served for a later date, that right now there was enough standing for this thing to move forward. And in my opinion, what a slippery slope. Because if you allow this to happen, if you allow gun makers to be sued for crazy people using their weapons to incite violence, then you are going to run these gun makers out of business because every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the world is going to sue. Exactly. That is the motivation. But moreover, what it does is it opens up companies like Ford, Chevy, Dodge, Chrysler, name your automaker. What about that guy who makes an irresponsible action and jumps behind the wheel while he is incredibly intoxicated and kills somebody? Now, does Ford get sued? Because it seems to me that's the precedent being established with this idea if they allow this lawsuit to continue.
Well, that's certainly the logic behind it.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary that, the left will do this. They'll play on emotions and they'll trick people into being victims. And they get what they want, but nobody ever thinks about the far-reaching implications. No one thinks about the slippery slope that is created by such legislation. And to me, it turns into a horrible deal. Now, it's very, very important to clarify for the listeners, I think, that all of us on the right who are for the Second Amendment and believe in our right to bear arms, believe in doing so responsibly. None of us are against background checks. None of us are against safety when it comes to firearms. What we're against is this idea of the government regulating, and they have the right to regulate, but putting in place regulation that effectively, not literally, but effectively strikes our Second Amendment right to bear arms. They can put up so many barriers to own a gun that it effectively makes it impossible to do. And that's the concern as I drop my pen square on the floor. And California is considering that, Chris, and I don't know if you have seen this, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. On April 9th, a bill hit the floor that, quote, could literally ban all federal firearm license holders from doing business in the state of California. And that is a serious bill right there. It's sponsored by Assemblymember Kevin McCarthy, who is obviously a Democrat. And if passed, it would shackle FFLs with 4 new requirements, the totality of which would simply force gun stores to close their door. And I want to get your comments on this as I bring it to light. The first of the 4 proposed requirements would bar FFLs from selling guns from their homes, even though FFL who sells guns from their homes still have to do a background check just as if they were selling the gun in a brick and mortar gun store. So if they don't do it within the premise of their store, it would be outlawed. The third requirement makes selling guns tedious, not only by requiring video surveillance of the sale, but by also outlining what must be videoed and when it must be videoed, and mandating that the seller get a certificate each year confirming video compliance. The fourth requirement would also cost the dealers by mandating a minimum of $1 million in liability insurance, while the second of the proposed requirements is an open door for municipalities to add even more gun control to the business-crushing list McCarthy has put together. So they're doing exactly what we mentioned earlier. They are tightening the reins through regulation to make it effectively impossible to move these firearms. Give me your thoughts on this.
Well, it's absurd. I mean, it is. I mean, it poses an undue burden upon somebody exercising their constitutional right. I mean, it makes as much sense as requiring some sort of a tax or regulation upon somebody before they exercise their right to free speech or to free assembly. Right? These are fundamental constitutional rights we're talking about here. And on any sort of constitutional or common sense basis, the legislature, whether it be state or federal, has no business and no right to try and put burdens upon people or to put hurdles in front of them from exercising those rights. That's the point of the Constitution giving people those rights, is that you don't have a burden. You simply have those by virtue of being a citizen of those country, and you can exercise them at your discretion.
Yeah, time will tell, I guess, but it underscores the importance of participating in democracy, making sure we get the proper elected officials in. And as far as I'm concerned, Chris, and I'm sure as far as you're concerned, what they do in California is their business. Just don't bring it east, right? Don't bring it to Arizona. Don't bring it to California, because I am a firm believer.
Well, I agree with that in general, except for when it comes to trying to regulate people's rights under the Constitution. Right?
Sure.
If they want to enact a 90% state tax, income tax, I think that's an absurdly bad idea. But it's their business, right? If they want to have a speed limit that's 30 miles an hour on their freeways or 130 miles an hour on their freeways, there may be good arguments on either side of that, but again, that's the state of California's business. When it comes to trying to regulate somebody's constitutional right to keep and bear arms, they have no business getting involved in that at all.
No, agreed. And maybe I miscommunicated what I was saying. I am on 100%, but eventually the people of California will get wise that these liberals in office have very close, will continue to bankrupt the state. They will continue to strip away their First Amendment rights. They will continue to strip away their Second Amendment rights in any and every way they can. And they are going to begin moving east. In fact, right now here,
I'm in Arizona, right? We've seen that for the past 20 years.
Yeah, and same thing right here in Texas.
The U-Hauls only move east; they don't move west.
Right? No, it's the same thing in Texas. In fact, I saw numbers just the other day of people moving to Texas, and a lot of that has to do with corporate relocation. We've been fortunate enough to convince a number of corporate headquarters to move to the Texas area, but with it comes the employees, which is great. But I think a lot of these
people...
Texas
succeeds in seceding, as I guess you guys are looking at doing, you might actually see more people moving there.
Yeah, I think that's more barroom talk than reality. But let me just tell you this, under the cover of I guess, I don't know, it's just going to be out in the open after this. But the pieces are in place, sir. Make no mistake about it. The pieces are in place if we ever need to pull the trigger on that. Hey, we got to take a quick break. On the other side, Chris and I are going to get into the election. We talked about how important getting the right people in office are. I want to get Chris's take from Arizona about where we're at on this national scene, what's going on, what he's seeing out there. Hang tight. On the other side, we'll dig deep into it.
The Gavin Mitchell Show.
Do you need residential or commercial roof repairs, maintenance, or replacement in the Dallas-Fort Worth area? J-Bow Roofing has over 35 years of experience in the industry, and they have the know-how to keep you dry and comfortable. J-Bow Roofing also offers a roofing system that is warranted against hail of any size, and this is a no-excuse warranty. J-Bow Roofing doesn't want their customers to cringe every time it hails. They want customers to have complete confidence that their roofing system is going to stand up to the task. Basically, J-Bow Roofing wants to stop the insanity, lifetime roofing period. Re-roof once and be done. A J-Bow roof product is aesthetically pleasing and tougher than anything you can find. A J-Bow roof is so nice your neighbors will want it. J-Bow lifetime roofing systems are strong as steel, tougher than hail, and guaranteed. So it'll be the last roof you put on your house. Looking for a price? Get a no-cost, no-obligation quote today at jabeau.com. That's jabeau.com. J-Bow Roofing. Your long-term satisfaction is their immediate goal.
Attention business owners. We know that owning a business means getting things done right now. So if your right now list includes a new building, call the Right Now Company. General Steel. We can design a building for your business quickly and save you thousands of dollars. That's right, thousands. You may think General Steel only builds large projects or that you can't afford General Steel quality. Well, check these prices. How about a 40 by 60 foot building for under $22,000? Or even a 50 by 100 for under $35,000? That's right, a 5,000 square foot building for under $35,000. And these buildings all have General Steel quality. Best of all, you can still order a building and have it delivered in time to build this year. How's that for right now? So if your right now list includes a new building, call the Right Now Company, General Steel.
800-398-8309. 800-398-8309. 800-398-8309. That's 800-398-8309.
Twisted Roads Trading Post in Crowley, Texas is your premier biker apparel, leather, and accessory store. Stop in and visit with brothers Ron and Carl Phillips. Twisted Roads Trading Post carries leather jackets, chaps, vests, accessories, gifts, and more. Open 5 days a week, Wednesday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and on Sundays, 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Got a motorcycle or trike to sell? Let Twisted Roads Trading Post be the place to go. Their park and sell lot is now available and anxious to show off your ride. Sewing, embroidery, and T-shirt printing services are also available throughout the week. Call today or visit twistedroadstradingpost.com or find and like them on Facebook. Located west of Crowley on FM 1187, then south on FM 1902. Go 1.3 miles and look for the flags. 817-768-8761. That's 817-768-8761. Twisted Roads Trading Post. If the flags are flying, we're open.
Hey everybody, your pal Gavin Mitchell here from my friends at Texas Elite Landscape. We all have that embarrassing spot in our yard we just can't seem to get grass to grow. Or perhaps you're tired of pumping hundreds and thousands of dollars into your yard just to get it to turn green when the weather warms up. Or maybe the constant maintenance is just too much to bear. Well, my friends at Texas Elite Landscaping are the most respected synthetic grass installation specialist in North Texas. Locally owned and operated, they have installed over 1 million square feet of the highest quality grass made right here in the USA. And I know what you're thinking. Is it pet and child friendly? You bet it is. So whether you want your yard looking picture perfect year round, no matter what the season is, or perhaps you'd like a putting green in the backyard to keep your husband home on Saturdays, give my friends at Texas Elite Landscaping a call today. 214-298-7726. That's 214-298-7726. Or find them at TexasEliteLandscaping.com.
Let's get back to the program. If you're sick of the garbage that comes out of Washington, D.C., then it's time to arm yourself with knowledge from the Blue Collar Professor. Here's your host, Dr. Gavin Mitchell.
If you would like to connect with the show, you can do so. www.thegavinmitchellshow.com. You are welcome to email me anytime. Would love to hear your comments, your suggestions, whatever it may be. Gavin at thegavinmitchellshow.com. We're on Twitter at The GM Show, Facebook, facebook.com/The Gavin Mitchell Show. The show is on demand, iTunes, Spreaker, and TuneIn as well. Remember, we are after those 100 followers on Spreaker so that we can qualify for iHeartRadio. We are almost there, so any help you could give us would be greatly appreciated. You can find the show 5 days a week on conservativeradionetwork.com at 5 p.m. We're on the 405 Media and K98 Talk as well. Special thanks to those guys. And then each and every Saturday night is the live edition on News and Information, KLIF 570 AM here in the Dallas area. If you're outside Dallas-Fort Worth, you can stream that live via Conservative Radio Network. Would encourage you, tune in, give us a call, be a part of the program. We would love it. It's your opportunity to weigh in on the air, and we would very much like that. Joining me today is a very special guest and a friend of mine, Chris Buskirk. He is the publisher of Downstream Politics, which is a website and blog that is fantastic, conservative in nature, and he also hosts the Chris Buskirk Show. Excuse me, I'm getting all tongue-tied here. Available on conservativeradionetwork.com Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 a.m. Central, and you can find the show on demand on iTunes and Stitcher as well. So, Chris, we were talking about going into break, getting into this election, and it's unlike anything we've ever seen, I believe. There are often references back to the 76 election and the contested convention and how things went, but I don't think that's the case. And before I weigh in, and my audience has heard enough about what I have to say about this, I'd love for you to just paint this thing in broad strokes and see if you can bring some type of understanding and sanity to what we're seeing.
If I had to describe this election, I'd probably start not by describing the election itself, but I'd probably talk about a divide that I think that has been there but has been exposed during the primary process that exists between what I will call conservative or Republican elites and the rest of the party. And that is something that is going to take some time to repair, if it ever really gets repaired. What I've found is that I'll tell you just something that I see just talking to people, just ordinary people, is that we have this really rancorous division at this point in the primary between Trump supporters and Cruz supporters. No disrespect to John Kasich, but there just aren't that many of his supporters out there. But the divide is basically between the Trump people and the not Trump people, effectively. And when I talk to people who support Ted Cruz, who are not professionally involved in politics, they support him. They will provide reasoned arguments as to why he's a better candidate and why they support him. But 99.9% of them say, if it comes down to Trump winning the nomination, they're going to support him. They think he's fine. He's not their first choice. They'll support him, and never Hillary is their perception, or is their position. But when it comes to people who are involved in politics professionally, that's where we get this never Trump movement or this never Trump idea. And to me, that exposes a divide that exists between the actual voters and the people who are involved in politics as a profession. And that's problematic. I think that a lot of the people who exist in the political world exist in a bit of a bubble. And they do not share all of the same values that the people out in the states share. And I think that is exposed by immigration. That's the issue that the Never Trump people will not give Trump any credit for bringing up. When it comes to their analysis of why Trump is popular, it never ever includes his wanting to get control of the border. It is always something else. It always comes down to his supporters are unintelligent, they're racist, they are, they don't know any better, they're losers. This was Kevin Williamson at National Review. These are the losers of the world, like the white trash. And this is not my experience at all, and this is not, by the way, borne out by the polling of who supports Trump. And I guess, I thought Peggy Noonan made a great point in the Wall Street Journal about a month ago writing about this, and I think she's been very good on the subject. And she said it's a lot easier for voters to find new leaders than it is for leaders to find new voters.
Yeah. And there's so much there, and I think you're dead on with so much. I'm not even going to pick apart and weigh in because I feel like that was very concise. Now, this vigor, for lack of a better word, this dissent for the other side between Cruz and Trump, you've argued that it's more so those of us who do this for a living than just the commonplace voter.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even include people like you or I. I mean, I really am talking about.
Well, I was trying to be very tactful there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we kind of exist a little bit outside. You're in Dallas, I'm in Phoenix. We, by the way, both of us have had jobs outside. Real jobs in
right.
Where we had to meet a payroll. We've owned businesses. That's a very different life, and it's a very different set of peers than you have if you exist in Washington, D.C. and its environments, in Northern Virginia or in New York, or even to some extent, if you are a party, if you're a party person in one of the states. I mean, the party people in the states who work for the party are very much connected to the people in D.C. They live in that world. They make their money based on that world, and it's a bubble, right? And I've known a lot of these people for 25 years since I got involved in Republican politics, and love many of them dearly, but I disagree with them on this. And I think that once you get into that bubble, you start to it becomes an echo chamber, and you only hear each other.
Right? Yeah. No. 100%. Now, let me ask you this dissent between the two groups. And I believe what Donald Trump has done, and before anybody writes an email, hear me out on this. When we saw Barack Obama enter the race 7 years ago, he brought people out of the woodwork who traditionally did not participate in the democratic process. They were first-time voters. And that really propelled Barack Obama to eventually winning the presidency. I believe Donald Trump has done the same thing for the opposite ideology, because we have this administration which the only promise he has kept is to fundamentally change everything we know.
Yeah, right.
That's been it. And we heard this rhetoric from the right. Well, we need the House and Senate to push back. So we gave it to them. And then they didn't. And I'm a firm believer the omnibus bill is the straw that broke the camel's back for many people. And they look up and they see this administration on the left. They see the lack of an opposition party on the right, and they feel they've just been completely hoodwinked. And there's this giant void. Well, along comes Donald Trump with maybe some of his bombastic rhetoric, maybe some of his lack of tact, and people loved it. People loved it. Finally, somebody willing to punch what Ted Cruz calls the Washington cartel right in the mouth and do it out loud. And so they grabbed on. But there was also this group that believed Ted Cruz was the guy for reason X, Y, and Z. And somehow this thing has morphed into Cruz versus Trump versus us versus them. And I know there were a lot of verses in there. It seemed redundant, but instead of
you're right. That it sounds like the circular firing squad that it's become.
Right. Yeah. And so my question is, I'm from Texas. I like Ted Cruz a lot. I like him a lot. And oftentimes you'll hear, well, all he does is lie. And I ask, well, okay, tell me what he's lied about. And then the conversation's over. There are no answers. And I can find some things he lied about, but that's not for me to support that argument because it's not my argument. My question is, can this bridge be mended? Now that Ted Cruz is all but mathematically eliminated and his hope is the brokered convention. John Kasich is what John Kasich is. Donald Trump looks like he has a chance to do this outright on the first ballot. But he's not only fighting the Cruz campaign for the nomination. It appears he's fighting the establishment because they're down in Hollywood, Florida right now trying to figure out how they're going to do this. Are they okay with Trump? Are they not okay with Trump? Are we going to change the rules? Are we not going to change the rules? And all of this is going on, and it seems like it's Trump versus the world. But at some point this summer, we have to decide whether we are going to let Hillary win this election or not. Because if the GOP unites, the White House is ours. This president has done such a horrible job, and people have such a bad taste in their mouth. It's over if we unite. The only way the left wins is a fractured party. Are we too far gone, Chris, to make that happen?
We're not too far gone, but we're getting darn close. And this points to that division that I was mentioning before, which is that the people like you and me, the voters, the people out in the country, we have our guy, right? Some of us are for Trump, some of us are for Cruz. There's even a couple people who are for Kasich, but almost all of us will say, let's pick the nominee in a fair, open, and transparent way, whatever that is, whoever that is. And then coming out of the convention, let's get behind him and go and beat Hillary because the country cannot take another 4, let alone 8 years of this radical leftist.
Right. I think that's the caveat, though, that's in question, Chris. It's not that I believe wholeheartedly if Donald Trump hits 1237 before Cleveland, everybody will unite and back that because there's no question that is a, quote, fair win, right?
I disagree with you on that, by the way. There are people who they've already declared that they won't. Now, will they eat some crow and come back? I don't know, maybe. But, I mean, there are people who have declared definitively, people like Mark Levin, by the way,
right,
who have declared definitively that there are no circumstances under which they would get behind Trump.
Fair enough. Okay, then let me rephrase
by the way,
the majority.
Mark Levin, the day before he said that on his show, he said that people... And in one of his sort of trademark tirades said that people who say such things are fools.
Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, he's perfectly capable of reversing himself.
Well, there's no question Mark Levin is brilliant. He is brilliant, and I love him to death. But it shows that this election is striking chords that it's never struck before with a lot of people, including Levin.
Yeah.
And again, when you start making emotional decisions and saying emotional words, a lot of times it's not the best thing in hindsight. And so Levin's not the only one. I mean, it's across the board. There are so many people, and whether you try to treat the candidates fairly or not from our side of the microphone, I have been accused in the same day by several people over and over again of being in the bag for the other guy. And if I have 3 emails for one, I've got 3 emails for the other. And so it's just so
look. I feel your pain on that one, and it's fine. It comes with the territory. My position is and always has been clear. I want to beat Hillary.
Absolutely, and that's the one thing we can agree on. But these never Trump people aside, and I agree with you. I feel like it's a small minority. Back to my original question: can the rest of us come together if somebody doesn't enter that convention with 1237?
Yeah, I do think it's possible, and I think that what's going to happen is the people who are going to lead that charge, if it happens at all, the people who are going to lead that charge are the other Republicans running for office this year. Excuse me, the other people who are running for office, and I don't care if you're running for dog catcher or state legislature or Congress or Senate or governor, if you are a Republican running for office in November of 2016, you need to have a united Republican Party if you want to have a good chance of winning, and particularly if you're going if you're running for Congress or for Senate, if you want to retain the majority in 2017. And so I think what we've seen is that the people who talk for a living have been extremely bold and brave in saying all the things they'll do and not do and everything. The guys who actually have to answer to voters, I think, have been much more prudent and circumspect in their rhetoric with regards to Trump and what they will and won't do. And that's because they have to answer to voters and they want to retain their offices. So I think that the elected people, the people who face voters, will be the ones who pull the party together coming out of the convention because they have to if they want to keep their jobs.
All right, final question before we hit the break.
Yeah.
Does Trump run the table Tuesday? We've got the 5 states in the Northeast. Everybody's been talking. This is his stomping grounds. Is it as bad as New York? When I say bad, as large of a margin as New York, or is it a little closer?
It might be a little closer, but he was going to run the table for sure. I mean, he's very strong in the Northeast. He's polling way ahead of everybody else, and you can't discount the effect of a big win. I mean, momentum counts. Voters see it, and people, there's a certain amount of people who maybe are wavering one way or the other, and they wind up going with the stronger candidate. Seeing a big win, 60% in New York, might pull some people into his camp. But yeah, I think he runs the table come Tuesday.
Awesome. Chris, I'm going to throw out the third break because I'm enjoying our conversation so much, but we got to take one more. We got to pay some bills. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. We'll come back on the other side. We're going to continue to talk about Trump. He apparently has turned over a new leaf. I want to know if Chris thinks this is legit, if this is for real, or is this an act? Hang tight. We'll be back on the other side.
The Gavin Mitchell Show.
Are you tired of making payments to a security company that doesn't seem to have the same values as you and doesn't offer the most recent technology? American Defense Systems is a veteran-owned and operated security company specializing in home security and automation solutions to fit your lifestyle while keeping small business owners more connected to work while on the go. American Defense Systems makes practical recommendations for families to keep your home safe without trying to sell you a bunch of extra stuff. And for businesses, American Defense Systems wants to provide you with the comfort of knowing that your business is safe by allowing you the monitoring options you need without loading you up with too many extras. American Defense Systems' goal is to provide your home or business with an affordable and technically superior security and automation system. If you're not happy with your current security system or provider, set up a no-cost consultation today at AmericanDefenseSystems.com. That's AmericanDefenseSystems.com. American Defense Systems, proud to be a veteran-owned company.
Boy, man, I had a rough night's sleep. Boy, I got a letter from the IRS yesterday, and I just couldn't sleep. Man, I'm dying here. Somebody help me.
IRS problems affect more than just your finances. If you're ready to take back control of your life and you owe more than $10,000, you need to call the Tax Doctor. Their expert staff can immediately protect you from the IRS and state collectors and get you the best possible tax settlement guaranteed. The IRS has recently released new programs geared in helping struggling taxpayers, where you make qualify to settle your tax debt and wipe out up to 85% or more of what you currently owe. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, call the tax doctor right now. See if you qualify to pay less. 800-631-9123. 800-631-9123. 800-631-9123. Again, 800-631-9123.
Do you believe in conservative politics, common sense issues, and the U.S. Constitution? So does Matt Locke. Who is Matt Locke? Well, Matt's just a guy that believes, like many of you, that our country is headed in the wrong direction. If you feel the same, then go to Matt's new website, themattlockshow.com. Matt is a friend of the Gavin Mitchell Show, and he's a conservative podcaster and talk show host who will shoot you straight and provide information that is important to the conservative listener. You'll hear political commentary, news, and he'll discuss the current issues that will affect you during this election season. Listen to Matt's daily podcast anytime on his website at themattlockshow.com, spelled MATTLOCKE, or find his show on Spreaker.com and TuneIn.com. He's also syndicated on ICRN, the internet's new conservative radio network. Join Matt and his guest on the Matt Locke Show daily at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific on conservativeradionetwork.com, or listen to any of his 400 archive shows at any time on themattlockshow.com. The Matt Locke Show, all things conservative politics.
The following message is brought to you by Health Markets, your first choice when you need health insurance for your small business. Do you offer health insurance to your employees? Call us now and see if you can save money. Do you want to offer vision and dental to your employees? Call us. Do you think you're paying too much for your current health insurance? Call us. Do you want somebody else to do all the legwork and search thousands of health plans from over 180 health insurance companies nationwide? Call us. We're Health Markets, and thanks to a little-known solution, we could help your business save thousands of dollars on health insurance costs and save your employees money, too. Our service is free. Don't miss the great savings. Call now.
800-470-8021. 800-470-8021. 800-470-8021. That's 800-470-8021.
Health Markets Insurance Agency is DBA of InSphere Insurance Solutions, Inc., licensed in all states. Product availability varies.
Hey, liberals, try rooting for your own country for a change. Our blue-collar educator of all things common sense does. Now, back to the Gavin Mitchell Show.
Hey, I want to take a moment and tell you about my buddy Daryl Petter. In life, there are two areas we all hold very close to the vest, and they're very personal. I'm talking about our medical history and our financial situation. When it comes to your health, you don't go to just any corner shop or Johnny-come-lately. You find the very best in the field. So why wouldn't you do the same with your financials? Daryl Petter has over 2 decades in the industry and has assembled the very best team he can find. Daryl and his guys aren't just going to sell you anything you're willing to buy. They're going to sit down with you. They're going to ask you what your financial goals are, and whether that's putting your kids through college or transferring your wealth to the next generation with as little tax obligation as possible, Daryl's going to find the right vehicle that gives you the very best chance to achieve those goals. Look, no one has a crystal ball to see what the future holds, but with over 2 decades of experience, Daryl and his team have seen plenty of ups and downs in the market. Daryl Petter and the guys at Petter Financial, they are personal friends of mine, and they handle all of my financial service needs. So I encourage you, give Daryl a call today, 817-416-4346. It does not matter what state you live in. Daryl has licensures across the country. He can help you out. That's 817-416-4346. I am joined today by Chris Buskirk. Man, just a great conservative, somebody I enjoyed talking to, so much so we threw out the third break. I just made an executive decision on the fly there, Chris. We're just going to throw it out the window because I want to get into this, and one leads right to the other. Donald Trump has sent his cronies to this meeting in Hollywood, Florida that we talked about, where the actual committee of the GOP is getting together. The Republican National Committee is meeting, and they're trying to hammer out how they're going to handle this convention. And the cronies have said that Trump has been, quote, projecting an image so far, and the part that he's been playing is now evolving. And it goes on to say that he is going to be more presidential, that when he's out on stage, he's saying and doing one thing, but that will evolve, that's something of an act, and it was necessary to get through the primary. I have noticed a slight change based on the victory speech after New York, that he no longer referred to Ted Cruz as Lion Ted. It was Senator Cruz, Governor Kasich, so on and so forth. And he says it's coming. He says he's going to be so presidential that we will be so bored with it we won't know what to do with ourselves. Are you buying this? Has this been an act? Has the abrasiveness been an act to get through the primaries, and now it's time to show he can be presidential and diplomatic and tactful?
Yeah. I mean, in part it has. I mean, all electoral politics has a bit of showmanship at it or in it, and some people are better at it than others. And he's a consummate showman. He's a great marketer. I don't think anybody denies that, even his detractors. And he knows that. I think he knows that it's time probably to shift gears, and close the deal. Right. This is he had to clear the field. I mean, there were 17 guys running, or 17 candidates running, I should say, 16 guys, one woman running at the beginning of the primary season. And he has dispatched 14 of them. There are just Ted Cruz and John Kasich left. And it's, he's on the cusp of sealing securing the nomination, and he needs to try and start consolidating support, not just among voters, and I think he has a lot there, but also among the party leaders, elected officials, to get them behind a prospective Trump nomination.
Right. Well, agreed. Now, part of what came out of this was that he's going to start moderating some of his stances. And if you remember this whole New York values thing, that was just one piece of this attack, if you will, this criticism that was thrown Donald Trump's way, that just a few years ago, he said in a national interview, yeah, I'm for abortion, I'm for gay rights, I'm from New York. Those are New York values. And that's where this whole thing spawned from. But he claims that there was this happening in his life from his friend wanting to have an abortion with their pregnancy, and then they ended up having the child, and now that child is the apple of his dad's eye, and it just opened his eyes to being pro-life. And that may be true. I'm not arguing that at all. But the stance that he's now moving more moderate leads me to question some of the authenticity of his statements. And the reason I bring this up, and it's going to transition us right into the next topic, is that his team pressed Trump's cases, according to this article off Fox News. He raised fresh concern among conservatives by speaking out against North Carolina's bathroom law. Now, what they're referring to with this bathroom law is North Carolina came out and said, look, we've weighed this. The people have elected us. We as elected officials have weighed this, and then me as the governor have signed this into law. We've considered it. If you are a transgender person, your feelings are less important to us than the safety of our children. And the left has taken this in and ran it into, oh, well, they're discriminating against transgender people. That's his stance. He's saying that, well, it's cost North Carolina a lot of money. It's cost North Carolina a lot of business. I don't know if this is the way we go. If Caitlyn Jenner comes into Trump Tower, he or she can use whatever bathroom he or she would like to. That's how I feel about it. Is this overcompensation, Chris? Is this a step too far in the direction of moderation?
Yeah, no, I don't. Again, I think people try sometimes and read too much into Trump's off-the-cuff comments. Right, this is a guy who is not particularly scripted in his responses to things. That's one of the things his supporters like about him, and he'll shoot from the hip. And I think that commentators do themselves and their readers or listeners a disservice sometimes by trying to parse every one of Trump's comments as though it were scripture. Today, Trump has moderated his stance, or I won't say moderated, he has amended what he said about the North Carolina law. I mean, what he has basically said is the way he's putting it out today with regards to the North Carolina law is saying, Caitlyn Jenner walks into Trump Tower, we have no way of policing that, and so who really cares, right? Because as a practical matter, there's not going to be somebody checking to see if somebody who looks and is dressed like a woman in fact is. It's not. You can't.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
So what Trump has come out today and said in response to this controversy over his comments yesterday, say, well, basically it's North Carolina's business, and they have looked at the issue and, don't read too much into my off-the-cuff comments.
Right.
And I probably take that at face value. I'd remind people, though, and this is, I think, important, if Trump is in fact, let's just give the critics their due. Let's say Trump is in fact opposed, deep in his heart of hearts, if he is opposed to the North Carolina law, I think he's wrong on that. Okay. But this is a reason why conservatives need to support things like the 10th Amendment. They need to support their state rights, their state legislatures, their governors, for the prerogatives that the states have to govern themselves in a way that the people of those states see fit.
You and I couldn't agree more. Not on the 10th Amendment. I am 100% with you. But I want to push back a little bit on Donald Trump's off-the-cuff comments. And 9 times out of 10, I'll agree with you. And to me, that was him just not being prepared. He took this mass marketing campaign instead of being, quote, presidential and getting into the issues. And sometimes he would misstep on what he said. As soon as he got backstage, the campaign would whip it in line and educate him. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. But make no mistake about it. I'm just going to read you a couple quotes straight out of his mouth about this. He believes they, quote, use the bathrooms they feel are appropriate. Quote, there have been very few complaints the way it is. People go, use the bathroom they feel is appropriate. There's been so little trouble. And the problem, what happened in North Carolina, is the strife and economic punishment they're taking. If you read his comments from his first address of this situation, it becomes very clear that the economic consequences are far more important than this issue to Donald Trump, and that's fine. That's fine. My question really is on this is this adjustment to becoming a more moderate candidate, has he missed the mark and overstepped it? And you're saying no, absolutely not. It's just
I guess I don't want to say no. I want to say I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to see what that really plays out and looks like. I mean, I think that is basically standard procedure for candidates at this stage and as they go into the general election. And by the way, I think that particularly if we look at 2012, 2008, that's been a huge mistake, right? People are attracted to candidates who are very clear about what it is they believe and what it is they're going to do. It certainly was the case with Barack Obama. Republicans and maybe conservative or Republican-leaning independents, they are not looking for a watered down liberal, right? If you want a liberal, just go for the real thing, right? And that's why I think Republicans have lost the past couple of elections. If what Trump means and what this means is that he's going to maybe moderate some of his rhetoric so he doesn't scare people off, but the underlying policies are the same, that to me sounds smart. That's good politics. If he means he's going to change some of his signature issues, let's say, with regards to immigration or some of the other things that he's really defined himself by, I think that would undercut his candidacy.
Sure. Now, we've got seriously 2 minutes, and we've got to get out of here. And I want to ask you about this law, just your perspective, because the argument isn't that transgender people are going to run into the bathroom and begin sexually assaulting everybody. That's not the argument. The argument is if there aren't clear and defined rules that you follow your genitalia into the proper restroom, it opens the door to those who aim to cause harm. That there's no way to police those who might otherwise want to hurt our children and our wives. And people have been outspoken. Kurt Schilling has lost his job. Krauthammer has come out and said, what's the problem? I would like your perspective in 120 seconds, if you wouldn't mind.
I'll say 2 things. Number one, I want to emphasize that North Carolina had every right to pass this law. Okay, so it was the business of the people of North Carolina. It's not anybody else's business, right? Out in here in Arizona or Texas, we can have opinions on it, but their legislature duly enacted this law. That's number one. Number two, I support them for doing it. I think it was the right thing to do. I think that the fact that we're having this discussion in some ways boggles my mind, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but 10 years ago, did you think that you would be discussing whether or not you could go into the woman's restroom because you think you're a woman?
It's not funny, but you end up slapping your forehead. Like, how did we get here?
Right.
You know?
And what happens if you change your mind while you're in there? Do you have to cut off what you're doing and change bathrooms?
A very valid point that has not been considered by yours truly. A very valid point. And to me, it's just this.
So we're sort of through the looking glass. I mean, to me, the debate is a little bit absurd, but I think that the North Carolina law. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. It may be imperfect. It may be great. But that's the beauty of having it done through legislation as instead of through the courts, is that if adjustments need to be made at some point down the road, the legislature can do it. But to me, it seems like a common sense first step.
Sure. And you mentioned the word absurd. To me, it's not absurd to value the protection of your wife and kids in the community, not from transgender people, but people who would take advantage of this law over the feelings that may be hurt from the transgender community. There's such a small proportion, and that doesn't discount their value as people. But when you look at the better good for the whole, you weigh it. To me, safety is more important. And the pushback from corporate America is absolutely disgusting, because these companies continue to do business in which other countries persecute gays and transgenders, but they say nothing about that. Chris, thank you so much for joining me, buddy. It has meant the world to me.
It was a great discussion.
Absolutely. Guys, that's going to do it for today's show and this week. In the words of the great Ray Wiley Hubbard, on the days I keep my gratitude higher than my expectations, I have really good days. Go have yourself a great week.
Thanks for listening to The Gavin Mitchell Show, the Blue Collar Professor, produced in Fort Worth, Texas. If you like what you just heard, subscribe on iTunes and Spreaker.com. These and other links can be found on our website at thegavinmitchellshow.com. Be sure to tell your friends and colleagues about the Blue Collar Professor's daily podcast. Join us again next time as we take the liberals to school. All opinions expressed by the host or guests on this series are solely their opinions and do not reflect the views, policies, or positions of the Gavin Mitchell Show or its affiliates. This has been a Ron Phillips Pinnacle Broadcast Holdings production.